What's the most amount of pain you've been in? Burned in a house fire and when the water heater exploded and turned into a flamethrower. Burned over 90% of my lower body. 70% of that was burned to the muscle, no skin at all left. The descaling bath consisting of 1 bottle of betadine and 1 pound of salt in a whirlpool was a nightmare as well. I spent 4 or 5 months in the hospital and another 2 years in rehab. I was 12 years old. You win. I was a victim of medical malpractice. I was 15 years old, held down to a table by nurses and my oncologist, while he performed a bone marrow biopsy on me while I was wide awake. With no sedative or numbing medication. He's currently rotting in prison and will hopefully be there for the rest of his life. His name is Dr. Farid Fata. Arrested in 2012 or 2013, time is getting away from me. I'm reading what he did and it's so frustrating. Guy gave hundreds of people unnecessary and excessive chemo treatments to people who did not need it, including people who did not have cancer, to run up insurance bills. What drives me crazy is that he's not in prison because he ruined hundreds of lives, he's in prison for scamming insurance. They had a guaranteed win with the fraud case. It's stupid. But the defense would argue that there is not 90% plus proof that the people who had issues as a result of what he did wouldn't have had those issues eventually either way. My dad went down a mountain in a logging skidder and blew up at work. Over half of his body was 2-3 RD-degree burns. It was pure hell hearing the workers' comp defense argue so many of his problems were unrelated to the accident, but it's absolutely what they did at every turn. Like, no actually. He would not need to relearn most basic skills and need physical therapy if he hadn't blown up and gotten a TBI that wrecked his self-control and short-term memory. And yes, the whole family needed therapy because it messes kids up having to see their dad naked to change dressings on burns while he regularly abuses everyone because of his circumstances, combined with the TBI changed him as a person. They wouldn't even pay the hospital for the emergency airlift out of the woods and burn surgeries and skin grafts without fighting. They used to send spies to the house trying to catch him faking it. He was in a full body cast his first few weeks home and this was the behavior we dealt with. Sneaking around our neighborhood and offering our neighbors cash for pictures of him not being hurt as bad as he was saying. Insane times. JFC. I perform marrows and I give my patients 4 meds to help them stay calm and relaxed. Some of them nap through the procedure and I am happy when this occurs tbh. I numb the area very well and methodically, and give more if they still feel it. Even with my system it is not comfortable for anyone and no matter what it hurts a bit to pull out the marrow into a syringe. The thought of what you went through makes me come close to crying. I am so sorry this happened. My goodness. I remember seeing a documentary on him, asshat. So sorry you had to endure this. Such a horrifying experience. Kind of numb to it most times. Then sometimes it'll hit me that I was literally tortured. I wish it was easier to go after doctors for malpractice. I had a surgery where it was similar. It was for SVT, but 2 catheters failed and they kept me awake for a surgery that was supposed to be 1.5 hours max, but was 8 hours of hell. And when I wanted to sue, every law firm basically told me that the amount of money to fight the hospital system, then because of how medical device law works, I couldn't go after someone like Johnson & Johnson. I did get a letter 4 months later letting me know that they found water damage in the 2 catheters they used in my heart and the third was from a different brand that finally worked. But end of the day the surgeon who was incompetent used 2 corroded catheters, when I say catheter not the urethra kind, but ones they put into my arteries into my heart. Then finally got the third to work then kept me up during the entire process because random reasons. As I was crying in the surgery the anesthesiologist was trying to comfort me and the surgeon was telling her to STFU and not listen to me as I was awake and in pain. End of the day it was a nightmare scenario and the doctor is still doing his job and Johnson & Johnson gave me a nice letter and then told me to F off. I still have PTSD and nightmares of the procedure. And post-op they fucked up a bunch more. It's a hunting experience when you are tied down to a table and people can do things to you. For those interested, there's a pretty good podcast on this nut job. Dr. Death Season 2. Having to hear your mom scream/cry out, he's gone over the phone when talking about you eldest brother passing away. I swear some nights I can still hear how she said he. The break in her voice. How it shook. Same. My mother's wails and screams over the death of my younger sister haunt me. Reliving that day would equate to hell. I'm so sorry. Sending you peace. Watching my brother take his last breath after fighting cancer for nearly 2 years, my mom screaming he's not breathing, and me telling my dad on the phone he was gone. My father's guttural scream. My mother's heartbreaking cry. Watching the life leave him. I don't know if it will ever stop hurting. My sister had leukemia for 13 years. Lost the fight last year. The first 8 months were the absolute fucking hardest and heaviest. Even now, it still feels like my soul is in a black hole. I've been told countless times we'll never be the same and it never goes away. I'm definitely believing now it doesn't go away. I'm so sorry for your loss. If you ever get the chance to watch Hereditary, literally just don't. I found my mom's boyfriend dead when I was 9 years old. I didn't realize he was dead. I was shaking him trying to wake him up. I couldn't and woke my mom up instead and went upstairs. Hearing her screaming and wailing has stuck with me my entire life. Especially realizing that I was shaking and touching a dead person really messed with me. Even now, at 29 years old, I can still hear her as clear as day screaming and crying, finding out her love died next to her in their sleep. I bring this up because I love Hereditary. It is my most favorite scary horror movie. My wife's what? No, that just dissolved into wordless wailing when she got the phone call that her parents and 2 youngest brothers were killed in a car accident. It's haunting. She lost her entire family at once? Holy fucking shit. I cannot even imagine. Bless her precious soul, please give her the biggest hug from us. Not her whole family. She still has an older sister and older brother, but a lot of it. Yeah. As a pediatric right now, nothing in my job is worse than holding a mother after she sees her child die. Luckily, it's only happened twice. Too many close calls to keep count of though. I saw another pediatric right now somewhere else on Reddit refer to it as the mother's wail. For me, it was the father. The baby was 2 months old. It was Boxing Day, and mom had baby for that one night. She was high as a kite. She was only supposed to have supervised visits. We worked on baby for 1 hour 15 minutes before doc finally called it. Dad arrived about half an hour in and didn't stop screaming for several hours. He lost his voice, and he still screamed. I almost lost my daughter in labor, and when they told me she wasn't going to make it, I made that call. I'll never forget the moment they told me. She survived though. But now I'm standing here in my kitchen cooking breakfast crying for y'all that lost your kids. I'm a mother, not a nurse, nor had any occasion to ever know what it might sound like. But when I heard it, a woman outside our flats, an icy coldness came over me, my throat kinda constricted, and I said to my husband, that's the sound of a mother whose child has died. He was a bit baffled. How can you know that? But it's just obvious. Sure enough, we saw an ambulance arrive a short while later and heard it was her little girl the next day. Awful. Thank you for your service. As a mom who lost her son due to complex medical issues for 14 years, I can't count of how many times a nurse offered their hug and ears to hold me and hear my cry and complaints about how hard this life is. When I waited for my son's surgeries or his stay in the PICU, the pediatric nurses are angels, both for my son and for me. My dad passed away at home absolutely unexpectedly. Me and my brother were away camping. A family friend came to get us, and when we got home my mom ran to me and started screaming, "He is gone. Daddy is gone. Daddy is gone." That scream was terrifying. I was 14, and I remember I started screaming back stop talking. For years I remembered that scream, but I hadn't thought about it in a long time. Your comment reminded me. My friend's mom called her to say her father had collapsed and she was waiting for an ambulance. We went straight over and she jumped out of the car. I parked it, and before I got out I just heard her scream. It was purely animalistic. I've never heard anything like it, and I never want to again. There's something so gut-wrenching in that pure grief. My older brother died by suicide. My father's guttural cries are something I will never forget. So fucking heartbreaking. Hearing my mom scream, but he's so young, when the doctors confirmed there wasn't anything else they could do for my little brother and we were bringing him home for hospice. Yeah. That's gonna haunt me for the rest of my life. It was pneumonia. He was disabled and immunocompromised following a car accident. I'm so sorry. My call was when my youngest brother died almost 2 years ago. I will never get that call out of my head. I have never heard so much pain in anyone's voice. Your post reminded me of something that happened early in my law enforcement career. After nearly 20 years, it was the only time I really felt my heart break at an incident. It was a car accident and a 12-year-old boy who was riding his bike was struck and killed. When his mother arrived, she let out this scream that has haunted me ever since. While I could obviously never know her pain, I could feel something in me tear or break when she screamed. It just seemed so unfair and sudden, that a young boy's life could end so quickly and the loss his family must have felt. Rectal cancer T4 tumor still fighting it daily. Male sign. I am wishing you strength and recovery. My very loved uncle is in the exact same place. We don't do feelings among the men in my family, no matter how hard I try. I know he uses Reddit a fair bit, but wouldn't have a clue what his username is. I don't know where you're living, my friend, But please know your family and friends love you dearly, even though it may not show outwardly at times. And if this just happens to be my Uncle David, big fella, I love you so much, mate. My daughters absolutely adore you and we can't wait to spend Christmas with you all. I'm sorry my work keeps me away from home, but just know you're never far from my thoughts. Can't wait to have a yarn in your backyard and throw back a fair few IPAs when I'm home next. Much love, XXX. Grief, honestly. Edit. I just want to say I really appreciate all those commenting to share your experiences. Loss is an awful thing, and I remember feeling quite isolated in the thickness of my grief. It's comforting even now, years later, to identify with people who have felt how I have, from all over the world. So thank you for that. Came to say this. For me, it was the day I pulled the plug on my dad. The guilt still finds me a decade later. I can still see him laying there if I think about it. It was his birthday. Yes, there's no anesthesia for it. The most gut-wrenching feeling, like your entire abdomen has been carved out and replaced with unrelievable pain. I'd take all the physical pain I've endured over the feeling of unexpected, premature loss. It's like an anxiousness. It's in the gut and the throat and the chest. It becomes the normal, yes, life-shaking loss. Pretentious mode, on, folks. Discovering that your child has a lifelong, incurable illness is pain like nothing I could ever express. If I really tried, I wouldn't be able to stop writing because the pain is so bad. My kiddo has the kind of rare disease that no one had ever heard of. Almost lost her a couple of times. She's an adult now, but struggles every day of her life wanting to be normal. It's pain that I can't begin to express. Edit. I'm still pretentious, but I'll try to tone it down. I was that kid, nothing strange or incurable, just disabled in a world that wasn't made for me. My dad heard it and thought, what's next? How can I make her life that best it could be? I lost him a month ago yesterday, and the world feels as huge and scary as I was when I was 8 going through surgery. I'm genuinely touched. If you're looking for some support, I'm willing to help, provide insight, etc. My daughter has one of those, nobody else has it, kind of things. I'm happy to share more and try to provide insight. DM me if you'd like to communicate off the thread. Edit. Cheers for the award. I'm on Reddit anew after an old account got hacked and deleted. Don't think I ever received one before. I was going to say my knee replacement, but nope. Grief. I saw this a while back and boy did it hit hard. Grief is a tricky beast. It's a little bit of looking back and a lot of mourning the future that never will be. My cat died a year ago and it was worse than every family member and friend I've lost in my life. Feels almost embarrassing to say it now because I know she was just an animal, but she was one of my best friends and she was there for me through the most formidable times of my life and it just fucking devastated me when I lost her. I still think about her every single day. I don't know who needs to hear this, but don't take your pets for granted. They can give you an amount of unconditional love you can't get from most humans, and when you find the perfect pet, they can never be replaced. You'd never expect someone to say they're embarrassed for grieving a family member. Your cat was your family member. Don't minimize your pain. I'm really sorry for your loss. Sounds like your cat was very fortunate to have your love every day. It's a feature of humanity that lacks in so many. Your cat was not just an animal. Humans are animals too. A lot of us forget that, yet we place great importance on ourselves above other life when we are just another evolved form of life. You had a bond with another life form that is just as special as a bond with another human life form. Moments and feelings were shared between you and felt and experienced by both of you. All life is equal. Your grief shows that and shows your character appreciates other life. It baffles me how everyone can't see animals share all the feelings we do. Perhaps they just don't have the language to rationally internalize the feelings, but regardless they feel the feelings and share an experience with us. From what I can see. My boyfriend took his life and my grief was the most painful thing I've ever felt and it lasted years. Yep, I've had some pretty extreme physical pain as a cancer survivor, including a bone marrow biopsy that made me scream involuntarily as it felt like my pelvis was splitting apart. None of it compares to the pain of losing my son. I wanted to rip my skin off to feel relief. Watching my mother go through dementia and die a little bit every month. Watching someone you love have their mind deconstruct itself is a horrible process. I can sympathize with this, as my mom died with the same thing. I would not wish dementia on my worst enemy. It is an insidious condition that takes the person you knew away, and leaves a husk/shell of that person. They essentially die mentally, but live on physically. The emotional pain of seeing this was devastating. I hope you have healed or are starting to, and you have my deepest sympathies. Kidney stones number 1, infected tooth root number 2, spinal stenosis number 3 for me. Toothache where I contemplated suicide. And I had an ectopic pregnancy that ruptured my tube with internal bleeding, but the toothache was worse. I'm terrified it will happen again. I cracked a molar in half and it was 2 weeks before it could be taken out. Only painkillers that would touch it incapacitated me. And I had to keep working, so I went without. It hurt to eat, it hurt to drink, it hurt to breathe. It even hurt in my sleep. I saw toothache on an old document once as a reason someone was committed to an asylum. I 100% understand why now. Emotional pain, being suicidal. Dealing with constant suicidal ideations is not for the weak. But maybe even worse when my brother found me passed out on the floor of the shower, head cracked open, passed out from anorexia. I'll never forgive myself for what he saw. 7 years in recovery, for years since being diagnosed with bipolar disorder and the suicidal thoughts/self-harm stopped. I am so incredibly grateful for being alive. I'm glad you're here, Yellow Heart. I've had problems with suicidal ideations many years ago. A failed attempt made me change my ways, and it worked for a long time. But I'm noticing things coming back now. The last few years have been tough for me, and I'm noticing my thoughts getting darker and darker. I'm currently seeking professional help because of this, but I can't say that I'm very optimistic. Sorry for making this about me all of the sudden, but I just needed to get that off my chest. My oldest son committing suicide. Life is altered in a way that you wouldn't wish upon anyone. You must move forward and figure out how to even exist. I can't comprehend that level of pain. It's one no parent should ever have to know. My heart hurts so deeply for you enduring such a horrifying loss. My mom committed suicide and yeah, my life hasn't been the same since. I was 21 at the time, 24 now, and it gets easier with time, but I'm a changed person after that ordeal. Shingles. I had endometriosis stage 4, multiple abdominal surgeries, and have had 2 broken arms and a broken leg, not at the same time. Shingles took my breath. It was awful. Shingles is always high up on this list. Why? Because it fucking hurts. I had debilitating nerve pain while I was healing. Just 3 really bad acute episodes where I could barely move. I bit my own hand and left deep marks. I went to the and waited there just to get pregabalin. I've had many other things happen to me, and those 3 nerve attacks were still the most agonizingly painful things that ever happened to me. God, I hated having shingles. I got driven to the and I was standing up in the SUV the whole drive. Could not sit down or lay down without being in excruciating pain. It was during COVID, so the hospital told me it was probably just sciatica, and I was just like that now. The only way I could get any sleep for months was stacking every couch cushion on the bed and taking the maximum amount of Tylenol and melatonin, and even then I could only get 4 hours. About a month or 2 in did someone realize I had shingles. OMG, shingles scare the absolute shit out of me. I'm like you with the broken bones, endo, multiple abdominal surgeries, and some excruciating dental surgery. But from what I hear about shingles, I'm not sure I could handle it. If it's as bad as I've heard, I think I'd just jump. Improper IUD removal. It had moved sideways, had to have it removed by a male doctor at a walk-in clinic with 0 bedside manner. Body went into shock from the pain. I've never felt anything like that in my life, it's almost indescribable. I also had a doctor accidentally pinch my cervix, and that was also indescribably painful. Luckily, both times only lasted a small time. Now I only go to female OBGYNs. The death of my infant daughter, 2 weeks before Christmas in 1986. Sorry to hear that. Can't even imagine that kind of pain. The root canal without anesthesia. 10/10 pain. 2 out of 10 experience, would not recommend. Why no anesthesia? Dentist messed up. Used to be a dental nurse. They are supposed to do a week of antibiotics. Because nothing will numb the area with an infection there. They don't usually just dive right in unless they can't wait for whatever reason. Usually if it's been left too long or a partially live nerve is exposed. What was the enjoyable part that made it 2 out of 10? The dental assistant has some gazongas. The OP's username checks out on this comment. Same. I was 12 and tooth was also massively infected and half my face swollen and full of pus. So fucking painful. I've given birth to 2 kids since, and I'd rate it just as bad as the excruciating back labor I had with my first. Top 10. Tooth pain, migraine surgery while awake, migraine suakit, migraine. I've given birth without anesthesia, broken bones, torn muscles, suffered grief, and the worst migraine is worse. When light hurts and your hair hurts and moving hurts and hearing hurts and you just want someone to drill a hole in your skull so your brain can escape. Migraine. Kidney stone. If you know, you know. Okay, the way to the I disassociated and went from crying and sobbing in pain to laughing because the pain was ridiculous. My wife was understandably more confused and alarmed by the laughing than the crying. Dry socket, undiagnosed for 3 weeks. Hell, gallstone pancreatitis, abdominal pain. Was told to go to the hospital to check for appendicitis. Cute nurse came and pushed on my belly and I farted a massive fart. All fixed. Embarrassment. My baby does that every few nights, wakes up screaming, scaring us that something is seriously wrong. Then farts loudly and falls asleep. So you're not alone. 104-degree fever with a 11 millimeters kidney stone was awful. But the worst pain was when I had my older son. My uterus just turned to mush and I lost over 2 liters of blood. I had my OBGYN and 4 nurses trying to stabilize me for over 4 hours. During this time my epidural wore off and feeling my doctor manually scrap my placent from my womb was excruciating. I mostly remember screaming, projectile vomiting and just wanting to go to sleep, but if I closed my eyes for a second 3 nurses would start to shake me awake. Holy fuck. If that's not one of the most body horror situations that I've read in this thread. Your older son? You voluntarily had another after that as your first experience?
Yeah.
It wasn't planned, but when you have a major hemorrhage in the past, there's a simple pill they give you that keeps your uterus toned. Second baby arrived in less than 2 minutes and proceeded to pee all over me and then nurse. I was happy to have him. I didn't think I was going to get to keep my uterus. My last gout flare up. My foot was so sore and swollen that the slightest breeze hitting it caused terrible pain. I couldn't sleep because the weight of a bedsheet was unbearable. Crippling sciatica. Can't walk more than a block. Salmonella side effects. My asshole dry heaved, except for blood, for days. Felt like I'd been in a marathon pound you in the ass prison gangbang. Would have likely died without 4 fluids. Benign pituitary macroadenoma, big as tumor, pressing on my optic nerve. Unmedicated copper IUD cramps. If I didn't feed myself ibuprofen in the first 6 months of having it, I would have been completely incapacitated. I have such a high pain tolerance and I can't even begin to describe the pure pain. It's the most pain Eve felt to date. Having an IUD inserted was the single most invasive, unreachable, sharp, dirty interior pain I've ever felt in my entire life. It was a pain on/in my body that I could not reach with 2 or even 1 hand to soothe. The 90 days following were horrific also, but I got through them and one day, that little fucker settled down and went, "It's okay, now." And now I am. But that pain, I will never ever forget it. The pain of something you can't reach but consented to, for whatever fucking reason. In my late teens, I came out of a dissociative episode as I was branding both of my wrists. I think breaking my hand was immediately worse pain. But 12ish years later I still wake up sweating in the middle of the night and have to ice my forearms until the burning sensation becomes manageable. Personally, I would trade instant and intense over constant nagging pain. Holding my mom's hand as she died. And then telling myself that I needed to get home to get a good night's rest because the military was shipping me out bright and early in the morning and I had to be sharp. And endometriosis. I was in so much physical pain that I was throwing up on myself while trying to hunch over to a slightly less painful position. Didn't shit for like 2.5, 3 weeks. Looked like I was 9mo pregnant and couldn't move even an inch without being in excruciating pain. The best way I can explain it is 1. Your intestines ripping and shredding. 2. Appendix combustion. Or 3. Someone taking a rusted scalpel and slicing it on every surface including my back. This has happened multiple times in my life, happening since I was like 15 to 16. Went to the hospital pretty much every time it happened. I'm pregnant now and just a couple months ago it happened again, for the last time hopefully because normally it happens at least once a month or once every 2 months, and I finally waited it out. It was god awful and I was in cold sweats and shirtless in my bed because my body was contracting subtly from the pain. It lasted about 45 minutes. Afterwards I normally feel sore for a day or 2. But I'd rather be sore than in long-lasting brutal pain. It was my first pregnancy. I was supposed to have my next ultrasound to know the gender of our baby. A few nights before my appointment, I miscarried. I still went through the birthing process. I was 18 and 5/7 weeks pregnant. We left the hospital with my child in a small box. We found out we were supposed to have a baby boy. Most painful thing I felt, physically and emotionally. I've had 4 kids unmedicated and it could never compare to the day my dog collapsed and died in front of me. She was suffering and I didn't even know it. You didn't know. And all your puppy knew until the very end was love. I'm so sorry. Sending you healing and hugs. Drunkenly leaping off a balcony and breaking my ankle in 4 places and shattering my heel. Childbirth. Definitely childbirth. I thought that I was getting sick after I gave birth because my throat was pretty sore, so I was paranoid about getting my baby sick, but actually it turned out that I screamed so hard when I was giving birth that I gave myself a sore throat. The horrific pain of crowning, feeling like I was being ripped in half. My epidural didn't work. Fiat of all, I'm a man, so I have no fucking idea. That said, my wife wanted to have our first at home, unmedicated, and it took 26 hours with 4 hours of transition and pushing. It was brutal. For the last hour or so, I have no fucking idea, time stopped existing at that point. I held her up in the birthing tub so she didn't have to focus on standing/squatting/sitting and could just push. I knew labor was painful, but I didn't realize how much it took until I felt her body tense so much every push and then fall utterly limp after. She's a strong woman and has high pain tolerance, but she was so red in the face and just drained by every single contraction at that point. It was one of the most stunning, terrifying, and awe-inspiring things I've witnessed. Just crazy how much it takes to get a human out of your body. Needless to say, she went medicated at the hospital the next time. She's a badass but also had no need to prove that anymore. Yep, it's so much more brutal than it's portrayed. Then the recovery after having your genitals ripped beyond recognition, but you can't recover because sleep isn't allowed and your nipples are on fire 10 times a day. Being raped when I was 17-18. Not talking about physical. Years of trauma still relapse sometimes. Wisdom tooth infection, I couldn't eat, sleep, or think. Made me respect medieval people who lived through that with herbs. I had open heart surgery when I was 7 and they had to put these tubes in my chest to drain excess blood. The nurse would have to come in and milk me. It was genuinely fucking awful. Oh man, it has to be losing all 3 of our family dogs within a span of 9 months, 2 rescue greyhounds and 1 Jack Russell X who we'd had for 12 years up to that point. The first greyhound passed naturally from old age. Our second was brutally attacked by another dog on the beach and died in pain. Our family dog had cancer of the stomach which took him before us knowing what was really wrong with him. I've never seen my parents that tired and anguished. It was awful. Pet loss grief is very real. Mourning my dead cat. When I ruptured an eardrum, I was flying back from a business trip and my connecting flight was on the complete opposite side of the airport. I only had 10 minutes of layover, so I missed the flight. I found a hotel for the night, but I woke up in the middle of the night with a terrible, throbbing pain in my ear. It felt like someone was jamming a knitting needle into my ear. The next day, after I made it back home, it just got worse and worse. A couple nights later, I literally couldn't sleep because I was in constant pain. I drove to the and they took one look in my ear and said, "Yep, it's ruptured." At first, they just told me warm compress, Tylenol, aspirin, etc., except I had been trying that for days and didn't do anything. I eventually had to drive to the a second time, and then they finally gave me a prescription for some pain meds, but even those couldn't make the pain go away completely. And for whatever reason, I would get headaches whenever I took the pain meds. My eardrum ruptured on a tiny plane from Riga, Latvia, to Copenhagen due to flying sick. My ear was bleeding and I was sobbing. I then had to fly 12.5 hours from Copenhagen to Los Angeles. I know your pain. That was hell. But my testicular torsion was still worse. Herniated disc L5S1. And I've smashed, cut, tore, burned just about every way you can, and my back was so bad I truly understand why people end it because of the pain. Going to the bathroom after my C-section. Have your abdominal muscles stitched together and then having to go, believe me, is the worst. A close second would be kidney stones with no medication and no surgery. OMG, the screaming and crying I did during that 30-minute poop. The pain was indescribable. I lost all my dignity begging for the nurses to help me. My nurse said all she could do was glove up and dig it out of me, so I did it myself to preserve what was left of my pride. I nearly fell to the floor. Turns out they could have been giving me laxatives pre-surgery. Wish someone would have warned me. Had an open hysterectomy. Going to the bathroom the first time was horrific, not even counting the fact someone had to hold me up and wipe my ass. A ruptured appendix with peritonitis infection, by far the most painful thing in the world. Physical, passing a kidney stone. Emotional, finding out my father had been arrested for solicitation of a minor. Are you estranged now? I was walking outside as a kid and me being stupid kid, decided to climb up a mountain of garbage. I jumped off of it trying to seem like a badass and happened to land on the biggest and fattest screw I've still yet to have seen in my entire life. It impaled my foot. It went between the gap in my toe bones and I remember twisting it out lefty-loosey just to hobble home. Looked in my grandma's med cabinet, found monkey's blood and poured it straight in the hole and pissed my pants from the pain. Didn't tell anyone about it and still get cramps due to it to this day and have a huge scar on the bottom and top of my foot. Grief and kidney stones. Miserable experience all around for both. Still dealing with the grief. Sciatic pain. Lasted a solid month and nothing touched it. I have 2 kids and would choose childbirth over my sciatic pain. Gallstone/sludge buildup so bad it was killing my pancreas. Almost died. Ended up having emergency surgery while 8 months pregnant. I had my ear bitten off by a German shepherd and was holding my ear while my friend was in shock. Watching my sick cat die in my arms. Looking up at me for help. Grief feels like a hit knife through your heart, there is no escaping it. Capsaicin cramps. A type of smooth muscle cramp in your stomach caused by eating super hot chilies. Waves of pain. Turning white, sweating bullets. Fetal position, rocking back and forth trying to find any position that makes it less painful. Lasts almost an hour. OMG. Great description. Mental pain and anguish/existential crisis or grief versus physical pain. Physically it would be gallstones. I would rank the mental pain worse though. That nearly ended me. Tooth/gum pain. I needed to remove it due to an infection. It was awful. I tore my ACL when I was 19. I cried for that one. It shocked my body. Insane pain. I can't pick which was worse, but they come to mind. Honorable mention, heartbreak is on a whole different galaxy though. Torn ACL, plus torn meniscus at the same time, for me felt like taking a gunshot wound to the knee. Never been shot so I don't know, nor do I want to. Just remember the instantaneous pain and falling to the ground like I had been body slammed. I got hit by a car. As a pedestrian. Although, I once said that getting a spinal tap while having meningitis was worse because there wasn't any adrenaline to help get me through it. My top 2 worst IBS flare-ups. Constant pain for days, didn't even know which position to lay in. Couldn't eat anything proper, first one lasted 2 weeks. Second one lasted a weekend. No mentions yet of a pilonidal cyst. Was like a white-hot sun at the center of my being. No position was comfortable. Thankfully when I went to see someone in medical, I was in university at the time, I got an immediate referral to a butt doctor and he suctioned the thing out and packed it and it was way better already. Hasn't come back either. Thankfully. Torn ligaments in left knee that shit sucked. Also rib injuries, probably one of those 2 were the worst. I seriously don't even know what happened. I'm a girl BTW. I think that's important to note here. I was in the car with my mom and just got suddenly nauseous. I didn't say anything to her, but it was bad. I was chewing gum and that was making it worse so I threw it out the window, like I shouldn't have, but that's not the point. I then got a stabbing pain in my lower abdomen. Like a period cramp but worse than I typically get. Again, said nothing to my mom. The pain was there for the next few hours and the nausea coming and going. I wasn't on my period. I wasn't due for it. It wasn't my appendix as it wasn't that right spot. It was so bad. But then it went away. I seriously had no idea what that was about but I have yet to have it again. I think you may have had an ovarian cyst rupture. Please get checked out. PCOS is not easy. Sounds like maybe an ovarian cyst. You need to see a doctor ASAP if it happens again because it could cause internal bleeding. I broke my neck in 2017. I have lived in physical pain every day since. After abdominal surgery the order for morphine never got to the nurses in the room. So I came out of anesthesia with no pain medication. I remember screaming in pain and how quickly the pain subsided once the morphine was finally administered. Grieving my dad. Cancer on my spine when I was 13. Before the surgeries, I had to get around with a walker. And to even sit somewhat comfortably anywhere, including the couch. I had to sit on one of those inflatable donuts you use for hemorrhoids. Definitely would not recommend. Y'all have crazy experiences OMG. I remember when I was young I was riding on a scooter really fast, and there was a crack in the ground. I went flying with my mouth open and hit my front teeth, which happened to be bigger than the rest of my other teeth, hit the ground. Terrible pain. Chin was all messed up too. 30-minute walk to get home as well. I also have cystic fibrosis. So coughing is not fun for me.